So I'm going to continue with my video that I did, and I'm starting to lose a little bit of the southern twang now being in the UK a little, and it's starting to come back as my my regular accent, although I still got a little bit. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, and it's a continuation of the last video that I did, and I want to talk a little bit why the political parties are pretty much the same, although they're supposed to be polar ends. They're pretty much the same, and I want to talk a little bit about why I said what I said. So here's the deal. Through the political structure, Labour and the Conservatives, in one way or another, have pushed the economy into disastrous situations. Labour from overspending, from selling off the gold mines, from borrowing and borrowing before the borrowing more than the capacity to pay back, and then when they can't pay back, they sell off vital parts of our country to keep things going. They have an agenda to try and make it so that everybody has the same, and they give away all this money, everything else, to everybody. The political correctness and all this sort of stuff came about through the left-wing propaganda. They are very socialist in their attitude, and they want to take more and more from people who have earned their wealth. Now I'm going to turn around and say that there are some people who have a lot of money who have basically been put in charge of corporations, giving themselves huge pay rises. You know, of course they should be paying more. But for those people who have worked hard and built business up and made a business, and it's sent through the family and gone through the family, and the family has grown up and worked through it, why should they be? You know, there's a difference between earned wealth, and there's a difference between wealth that is being taken for themselves through giving yourselves fat paychecks. Prime example, Gordon Brown sold off the gold mines. He borrowed so much money, they left this country in an even bigger deficit than what it was before when Tony Blair was in charge. Let's not forget, it was Labour who embarked on an illegal war that's kind of put us in an even worse position now. Let's not forget there was Labour who handed out so much money, who opened the borders, who started getting so many people in and just putting them on benefits when they hadn't even paid anything into the system. Alright? Now, I do believe that everybody has a right to live where they would wish to live, but they have to support themselves. They can't just get handouts whenever they need all the time. I'll say that the Conservatives are no better. And leading up to this COVID crisis, there were Labour who were just as much of closing things down as the Conservatives were. In fact, they wanted to do even more and take away more rights. Although Boris Johnson was bad enough, I have no love for them. And while the Liberals as well, they have no real clue on where to go and what to do. And the last decent Liberal Democrat was Paddy Ashdown, who had a good sense of where to go, but unfortunately he's not in politics anymore. And it was quoted that Paddy Ashdown was the greatest Prime Minister that we never had, and that was by both Conservatives and Labour. And we need someone like that. We need someone like that who can take a firm hand in things, which Paddy Ashdown did and would have done. Decisive action. So why do I say they're pretty much both the same? Because let's face it, they all went to the same school, they all went to the same circle, they all ended up in the same place. Don't buy that there's any difference. They all want to have the same thing. And what do people with power want? More power. Now, to go through what I said, I had someone say, oh well, that's useless, you can't, it's redundant. It just shows that people have no imagination and no real gumption on where to go. You start with something and start going round. That's how anybody starts in power, is taking on themselves to make the change. Doing what's suggested, getting with the people who are in your neighbourhood, who are on your streets, turning around and saying, right, I'm going to interview the local MP, and I'm going to turn around and ask them and give them the questions, make copies and say, this is what we, the people of this area, want to see done. Oh, I'm not saying it's going to change overnight. Nothing changes overnight. But if more and more people started acting this way and started doing this, then it's going to start making the people who are in charge think, well, actually, these people are actually starting to see through us. They're not buying what we're saying, and they're actually wanting us to, they're holding us accountable. I'm not saying it's a short route, I'm saying it's one of the most powerful routes. When you actually start building up a leadership like that, and when you start getting people behind you, when your voice starts getting heard. Russell Brand, more and more, his voice is getting heard. He's saying about what we should do. I don't necessarily like the guy, but I agree with what he says. Perhaps those of you who are disagreeing might want to actually listen to him, because it makes a lot of sense. Make the people in power accountable. You seem to forget that we outnumber the police and the military more than 10 to 1. We outnumber them perhaps maybe even 100 to 1. If people would actually start working together, do as I suggested, the people will become a powerful force and take back the power. Have a think about it.